Good morning. I think they put those VTs really short just to test us who speak. I mean, I nearly tripped up the steps, but I made it. Perhaps that's my talent, is walking up some steps in the dark with a music stand and a microphone and trying to remember not to fall over. My name's Mike. I'm a volunteer here at the Forge, as Helen introduced me earlier, and we are in this series, Summer Shorts, hence I've got my shorts on. I looked out the window this morning, it's 17 degrees, it's cloudy, but that's summer, right, isn't it? It's like, that's summer. So I put my shorts on. But as I start this morning, I need to share something with you. I often do this. I think it's important. I find it cathartic when I'm speaking to just confess stuff which I'm not particularly proud of. But actually, this is something that I am quite proud of, but I don't like talking about it. And in fact, many people that would know me would not know this about me. Even those closest to me probably don't know this about me. And this was because it happened in primary school. Now, what you need to know, and I really don't like talking about it, you don't know how uncomfortable I'm feeling right now, but I need to tell you that I was a kind of a big deal in primary school. I was kind of the man. I don't know how else to put it. I was born in Stowmarket and raised until I was about 6 years old, and then my family moved to Bristol. And so but between the ages of 6 and 12, I went to a very multicultural inner city school in Bristol, and I was the man. I was a big deal. I was this little kid from Suffolk, but you know what? I was top of the pecking order, I was. I don't like talking about it, you can tell. Whether that was in the sporting arena, I was the best player on a football team, I was the top scorer, I always got picked in some of the sports teams, whether it was cricket, whatever it was. In performing arts, I got all the lead roles in my primary school plays and things. I forgot to say that I was part of a really multicultural primary school, and there was a lot of controversy when I won the sprint race on sports day. This little white kid from Stowmarket, didn't happen very often there, but I did it. And yeah, performing arts, I got a very good role, a strong role in the Nativity. It was a musical as well. I had a solo line. I was one of the wise men. I was Balthazar. Here's a picture of me. I'm the one on the right. And so, yeah, I had this kind of soaring high note. I had this soaring high note to finish the big crescendo song. I can't honestly say that I hit the right key, but I absolutely committed to it. And then one day, I got the invitation. Obviously, my renown from Whitehall Community Primary School had reached other areas, and I got an invitation. And I got an invitation from HTV, which is kind of like the West Country equivalent of Anglia TV, to go and audition for their performing arts school. Now, this was a big deal. They used to produce programs. They were involved in lots of things. They were connected to the Old Vic Theatre, which has generated lots of UK, British acting talent. Casualty was produced in Bristol at the time. I could have been like one of those kids that at the start of Casualty, you know something's going to go wrong. That could have been me. So I had this invitation. It was an amazing, amazing opportunity. This was the real deal for the real deal. Do you know what I did? Nothing. I bottled it. I froze. I dismissed it. I made excuses for not doing it. And do you know what? Probably, if we're honest, maybe some of us, all of us, have had moments in life like that. Moments when something has been placed in our hands, a responsibility, a talent, an opportunity. Maybe it's a job or a relationship or something with potential that has been placed in our hands. Sometimes we may rise to the moment, and other times we hesitate. We freeze, we play it safe, or dare I say, we bury it. Why does this happen? Well, often it's not laziness, it's fear. Fear of failing, fear of judgment, fear of what others might think. And that was me. That was me. If I really look back on it, I was afraid. I was fear of failure. And that caused me to do nothing. But what if the real danger in life is not failure, but of doing nothing with what we've been given? Now, in this series, Summer Shorts, we've been looking at the parables of Jesus. And these are basically stories Jesus told to communicate like much bigger lessons than maybe what those stories seem to show on the surface. And Jesus, he tells this story, a parable that speaks right into this tension that I've been talking about. And this parable, it's short, it's sharp, it's a little bit uncomfortable. And it speaks into what we do with our lives, with what we've been entrusted with in our lives. And so let's get into it. This is how it goes. So Jesus is teaching us some parables to his disciples. He's talking about what it's like to be in the kingdom of heaven, what it's like to live with life with God. And he's teaching this to his disciples. And he says, again, it'll be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Now this is important. They're not all given the same amount, but they're all entrusted with something that matters. You see, these bags of gold, or talents as they're sometimes referred to, they were hugely valuable. Like 1 talent was equivalent to like 20 years' salary. So this was really, really important. It really mattered. And so what happens next? Well, the man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with the 2 bags gained 2 more. The third servant did the same, right? Must have done. No, this is what the third servant did. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Well, let's fast forward in the story, because the master returns. After a little while, he returns, and he wants to know what's happened with his money. So Jesus goes on, he says this: the man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. And the second servant, well, he gets the same response. He's done the same. He's multiplied his bags, and he gets this really encouraging response. Well done, good and faithful servant. The third one, well, he told his master this: I knew you were a hard man. I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. The master wasn't happy. The third servant, his fear had caused him to bury what he'd been entrusted with. Now, at first glance, this may seem like a lesson in good business, but Jesus isn't giving out financial advice here. The story isn't about money. It's about trust. It's about responsibility. It's about the invitation we all have to do something meaningful with the life and opportunities that we've been entrusted with, and not to be limited by fear. Jesus, in telling this story, in this parable, is saying this is the tragedy. Fear leads to wasted opportunities, wasted lives. And at the core of this very parable is this: you may not have chosen what you've been given, but you get to choose what you do with it. And what you do with it can reveal something even bigger. What you do with what you have reveals what you believe about the one who gave it to you. So let's unpack this story that Jesus has told. And it's a story, and it's a meaning that speaks into all of our lives, regardless of our situation, regardless of even what our beliefs may be. You see, the first thing to think about is this: you've been given something. As it said in the story, to one he gave 5 bags, to one 2, and to the other 1. Everyone has been given something. We have all been given something. This isn't a story about how much someone has. It's about what they do with it. It's about what they do with what they've got. And that's good news because everyone in the story matters. All three servants got something and were trusted, and everyone is trusted, and everyone is invited to invest what they have, what they've been given, and the same is true for us. We've not all been given the same. Maybe there's people here who you may not feel gifted. You may not feel influential. You may not feel uniquely called. You may not have that thing that other people or that other person might have. But you have been given something. Whether that's time, energy, a skill, a voice, a relationship, a personality, strengths, a situation, a job, life experience that might have been hard that you've been through that might help someone else. In a letter we find in the Bible, in the New Testament part of the Bible, Peter, a disciple of Jesus, wrote this. He said, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others. We can use these things that we've been entrusted with that may not be as good or as big as what someone else has, but honestly, the question here is, what did they get? It's not what did they get. It's what will I do with what I've got? Now, many years ago, I was approached by someone. It was in a church setting many, many years ago, before I was part of the Forge. And someone once came up to me and told me that the greatest gift I had is my willingness to be an idiot. That was my reaction. What? Thanks very much. It was genuinely meant as a compliment. I know it doesn't sound like it, but but it was. And this lady, she explained to me, she said, look, because you're okay, Mike, with not always taking yourself so seriously. You're willing to be self-deprecating. You're willing to be an idiot. And that endears people to you. That allows people to feel a connection and comfort around you, particularly kids. And whilst I would love to have an amazing singing voice, and whilst I would love to play an instrument and be one of these rock stars up on the stage as part of the band, I can't do that. But I can use what I've been given. I can be an idiot. And so 11 years or so ago, I started serving in Uptown Kids, which is our kids congregation here at the Forge. And I used my idiot superpower in serving in that way. And I love it. And I love it. God is using me through that. And here's the challenge. We've all been given something. We may not have wanted it, but we have it. But here's the problem. We don't always do something with it. And quite often the reason is this. It's fear, because fear will tempt you to bury it. The third servant said, I was afraid, so I hid your gold in the ground. He didn't steal it. He didn't lose it. He gave back to the master what he had been given. But he wasted that opportunity by doing nothing. Why? Fear. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. A distorted view of his master. He had said at the start of that, I knew you were a hard man. Sometimes that's the case, isn't it? We don't trust the person who's given us something. Maybe for you that's God. You're afraid of how God might judge you, how others might judge you. Maybe it's just the simple fear of the responsibility of having that thing. Paul, a follower of Jesus, writing to his friend Timothy, said this about fear and about how God feels about it. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of self-discipline. You see, God isn't there to judge us in that way. He wants to come alongside us. He longs for us to look to him, to seek strength and confidence in him. We don't have to do this alone. And that can allow us to achieve things beyond that which we could imagine. Maybe maybe we convince ourselves that doing nothing is safe. That's what the third servant thought. Keeping the status quo is fine. There's no consequences. Well, I'm going to be really honest. Fear nearly tempted me to bury the last part of this parable that Jesus is telling, because it makes a slightly uncomfortable parable even more uncomfortable. You see, Jesus ends the story with a warning, and it really isn't subtle. Why? Because this matters. What you need to understand is when Jesus is at this moment telling these parables to his disciples, they're journeying into Jerusalem. And he's about a week away from being arrested and crucified. He knows he's not going to be around much longer. And so with urgency, he is telling his disciples these important truths, teaching them of how this is to understand how they can live out their lives once he's gone. So he underlines this story with a really unsubtle warning. He says that this is what the master says about the third servant. Throw out that worthless servant into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The servant doesn't just miss out on a bonus, he's thrown out. And that sounds harsh. He gave back what he had. Look, I don't know exactly what this weeping and gnashing of teeth looks like for you and what you imagine around that, and I certainly don't have the time to unpack it. But Jesus is trying to say with this kind of like mic drop moment, this matters. There is a cost to burying and doing nothing with what God has entrusted with you. Not just regret, not just frustration. Often this phrase of gnashing of teeth is in reference in the Bible to frustration. You know, when you grit your teeth, oh, I'm really annoyed. It's not just about regret. It's not just about frustration. It's also about a kind of self-inflicted limitation of your life. Isolation from the opportunity to live a life to the full. Using the gifts and opportunities that have been entrusted to us. In telling this story, Jesus is making it really clear. Doing nothing is not the safe or neutral option. It's a missed opportunity. And more than that, it's a rejection of trust. Choosing fear over faith, safety over trust. Well, that results in the loss of joy, the loss of purpose, the loss of life that God invites us into. You see, God isn't looking for perfection. He's inviting participation. The master at one point in this story says, even if you had put it in a bank and got a bit of interest, that would have been better, but you buried it in the ground. He just wants us to do something with what we've been given so that we can feel joy and purpose, not regret and frustration. You know, when I've spoken previously here at the Forge, I've spoken at times about a job that I had a few years ago. It was a big job. It was a job that came with a lot of responsibility. Parts of it I loved, and there were parts of it, I'll be really honest, I struggled with. I really struggled with. And it got to the point where I needed to step away from that role. It was a difficult decision, but it was the right decision. But it kind of left me with this almost subconscious sense of fear. Of, could I still progress my career? Could I do other roles? What do other people think of me? Can I step out? Well, a few months ago, I was approached about taking another role with the same company. And actually, this was many ways, a much bigger role than the one that I had stepped away from. And this fear kicked in. And I questioned my ability. Can I do it? Would history repeat? What if I fail? What will others think? I was afraid. But I kind of I didn't hear this confirmation from God or anything, but I just felt that this was a moment where I just needed to step out in faith and do it. And so I accepted it. And I decided I needed to do it. I decided I could do it. And now I'm in it. And I tell you, it's scary at times. It is. Some days I wake up and I think, I can't do this job. But I am doing it. And I'm continuing to learn and develop. I'm leading a global team through a big project, and I have a day job as well. But I'm developing and I'm growing. I'm using the strengths and gifts that God has given me in that role. My team that I've adopted have now inherited, they were struggling. They felt isolated. They were really disengaged. And the other week, one of my team members, she said to me, look, I need to tell you this. It's felt like a huge burden has been lifted off my shoulders working with you. That she once again feels valued and is able to contribute. I was this close to burying that opportunity. Fear nearly buried it. It did. But faith, I believe, unlocked it. And the third servant buried his opportunity he'd been given. But the two faithful servants, well, they didn't wait. They did this. They acted at once. The man who received 5 bags of gold went at once. Both of them, he goes on to say, the second man did the same, acted at once. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They didn't wait for life to all be in order. They didn't overthink it. They acted. I nearly hesitated with that job opportunity, as I said, to ask for more time to think about it. Do you know what would have happened? I would have just said no in the end. And don't get me wrong, there are other examples I could say where I have hesitated. And what's that led to? It's led to regret and frustration. Because fear will whisper to you, you're not ready. But faith says, you've already been trusted. I've already given it to you. Go at once. James, the half-brother of Jesus, he put it this way. Do not merely listen to the word, do what it says. Don't merely listen to the word, do what it says. The antidote to fear is trust. And they trusted and they took action, the two servants. You see, trust isn't something we just feel, it's something we do. And it's not easy. So let's make this personal. What have you been entrusted with? And what are you doing about it? As I said earlier, what you may not have chosen what you were given. You didn't choose maybe your personality, your family, how you are wired. Maybe you would even say you haven't kind of chosen the job or the situation you found yourself in at work. Or maybe you didn't choose necessarily or fully influence your story or the circumstances which you've found yourself in. But you do get to choose what you do with it from now on. You may not have chosen what you've been given, but you get to choose what to do with it. And what you do with it, reveals what you believe about the one who gave it to you. Whether that is your boss, whether you trust your boss, whether it's a parent or a friend, or whether it's God, maybe you need to get closer into that relationship with God to understand that situation that you begin to trust in him. Can I ask you just to do something? Would you just lay out your hands in your lap? Just put them in front of you. This isn't a magic trick or anything. It's not going to make everything perfect. But just lay your hands out in front of you, palms up. Just imagine that you're holding a bag of gold. One of these bags of gold, one of these talents that one of these servants were given. Have a look into your hands. You're not holding a bag of gold. But maybe for you, that represents your gifts, your opportunities, your responsibilities maybe. I don't know what that looks like for you. But what is it for you? What has been placed into your hands? Maybe it's a position, a role, a passion or a strength. Maybe it's a difficult season that can help someone else, or where you need to be fully reliant on God. I want to ask you this question. Are you investing or are you burying it? Where has fear convinced you to freeze? What have you said not yet to? What would it look like to act at once with that responsibility that is in your hand, with that bag of gold which is in your hand? What would it look like to act at once? Is it to encourage someone, to apologize, to take that opportunity, to use that skill or strength or expertise that you have? Maybe it's saying yes to an opportunity, to volunteer your time, to give financially. Maybe today your step is to take a step towards God. Maybe for the first time, or maybe again. Maybe it's for you saying yes to that thing that God has been nudging you towards, that you've been trying to ignore. It could be to pray for the first time today. Or maybe it's to pray for the first time in a long time. Maybe it's saying, God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I believe, but I turn to you, and I don't want to bury what I've been given anymore. So here's the challenge. Choose one thing you've been holding back on. One thing fear has kept you from. One conversation, one act of generosity, one opportunity that you have. And this week, do it. Act at once. Maybe you feel it's too late. Maybe you've buried that thing many years ago. Maybe it's buried deep, deep down into the ground. Here's what I love about Jesus. You see, the master in the story, that was just a story. It was a warning. Jesus wanted to make it really clear that you need to do something with the opportunities that you've been given. But he doesn't shame us for what we've buried. He invites us to dig it up and do something with it. You see, God is a God that trusts us enough to give us something that matters, something valuable. He's already given that to you. So let's not bury it or keep it buried. Remember, you may not have chosen what you've been given, but you get to choose what you do with it. So last question. What will you do with what you've got? I'm going to pray. If it's helpful, keep your hands out. Keep imagining that thing that you've got in your hands. I'm going to pray, and then the band are going to lead us in a final song. Heavenly Father,